Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Innovation Programme Q&A hosted by the Spring Consortium and DFE. My name is Nigel, and I'm your event manager. During the presentation, your lines will remain on listen only. If you require assistance at any time, please key *0 on your telephone, and a coordinator will be happy to assist you. I would like to advise all parties that this conference is being recorded. And now I'd like to hand over to Mike. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Nigel, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're really excited to have launched the Wave 2 of the Innovation Programme. We've had a huge number of registrations of interest already. I'm in a room with Sam Olsen and Harriet Beecher from the DFE, and I'm from the Spring Consortium. The aim of today's session is to answer some of your questions about the expression of interest process. We've already had a large number of questions come in, and we will attempt to answer some of those, but we would also like you to be able to ask questions as we go through. So can I just hand back to Nigel to explain how you're going to do that?
Certainly. So ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please key * then 1 on your telephone, record your name and then press the hash key. If you then decide to withdraw that question or your question has been asked, simply key *2. All questions will be answered in the order received, and you will be advised when to ask your question. All other lines will remain on listen only. So just as a reminder, it's * then 1 on your telephone, record your name, and then press the hash key. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nigel. I hope that's clear. We're going to try and get through as many of the questions that we've had in already as possible, but as I said, we would like you to contribute to the session, so please do, as Nigel says, and ask questions as we go through. The questions that we don't get to, we will be putting on the website, so you'll have a chance to have a look at those afterwards, and the questions that we answer today will also be on there. So we're going to get started now. The first group of questions that we've had in are about the amount of funding, so I'm going to pass over to Sam to answer some of those.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and just to reiterate what Mike said, really excited that so many people have decided to join us today. On last count, I'm told it's just over 90 of you. So thank you, everyone, for your interest in this programme. My role at the moment is just to explain how much money we do have allocated under this programme. So whereas for the first round of the Innovation Programme, as many of you who will have been involved will be very much aware, all the funding we had to be used within the first year and a half of the programme. It's a really exciting step change for the programme now, because we're now starting to look at a 4-year funding cycle, and that obviously gives us an opportunity to really look at the longer term impact that some of your programmes can have. So we have a settlement of 200 million over this spending review period, so over the 4 years. Any reference to 110 million that you have seen anywhere is with reference to the first wave of 53 projects that we funded over the last 18 months. So for the next 4 years, we have 200 million. Some of that has already been used as part of the transitional funding for those projects from the last wave of the programme, and we are phasing that money over the 4 years based on what the programme needs are.
Great, thank you, Sam. As I said, we're going to answer a few of the questions that came in before the webinar started first. But if you're thinking of questions, then please do as Nigel said, and you can submit them, we'll get to them. I'm just going to answer a few questions that have come in on multiple occasions, and these are around the application process. And a number of people asked whether one organisation can submit more than one expression of interest. And the answer to that is yes, as long as they're distinct projects. Are organisations permitted to submit bids as a lead and be a named subcontractor with other lead bidders? This question came in a number of times as well. And again, the answer is yes, again, as long as they're distinct projects. So we would like you to be very clear about the projects that you're applying for, and make sure that we understand that there's more than one coming from your organisation. The third question we had was around higher education institutions and whether universities, for example, are eligible for expressing an interest in the programme. The answer is yes, and as long as the application adheres to one of the policy areas, so either around rethinking children's social care or rethinking transitions to adulthood for young people, then HEIs are eligible, and we've actually already had a Wave 1 university was successful. So they've already been funded, so we absolutely encourage HEIs to apply. Another question that we had come in on multiple occasions was around the difference between the May and July deadlines. Now, just to be very clear, the deadlines for the expressions of interest are Friday the 6th of May at 3 p.m. and then there's a second deadline of Thursday the 7th of July at 3 p.m. Now, the reason that we're offering two deadlines is because we recognise that some organisations already have a pretty good idea of what they want to submit, and the innovative idea may actually be quite well developed. Others will need more time to develop and progress their proposals. So the May deadline, the first one, Friday, May the 6th, is aimed at projects who have a solid, well-developed idea and can already articulate it effectively. What we want to do is to get those applications in first and be able to fund those projects and get them moving as quickly as possible. The July deadline, July the 7th at 3 p.m, gives those applicants it gives them more time to develop their idea and to be able to articulate their innovation into a really well-formed expression of interest, which can answer all the criteria set out. And something that we learned from the Wave 1 programme is that the projects that did very well in the early stages were the ones that had a really well articulated expression of interest and proposal in the first instance.
I'm just going to jump in there. It's Sam Olsen here from the DFE to say I'm not sure we've necessarily made this clear up until this point, but we do expect to be open again for expressions of interest further down the line as well. So we're not anticipating to allocate all the money in May and July.
Good, thanks, Sam. We had another couple of questions, slightly nuanced on the deadlines, and a question which again came up a couple of times, which is what constitutes a well-developed expression of interest, and this was often asked after what is the deadline for the expression of interest. The decision on which projects will receive funding is based on the criteria that's set out in the How to Get Involved document. And hopefully you've all had a chance to read it. On the Spring Consortium website, there's a link which links to the gov.uk website where this document's held. The criteria are in there, and we see a well-answered expression of interest will adhere to all the criteria that are in that document. The final question I wanted to answer before I hand back to Nigel to see if we've had any live questions come in is it's a question that says, we see that both local authorities and other organisations from the private, public and voluntary sectors are eligible to apply, but are applications in partnership with local authorities likely to be most successful, or are bids from voluntary or private sector organisations on their own equally likely to be successful? As I said previously, the decision is about which projects we fund is based on the criteria that are set out in that document. It doesn't matter whether the organisation is a local authority or from the voluntary sector, as long as the application can demonstrate that it meets all of our criteria, then that project will be funded. That's as far as I want to go on the questions around the application process. I'd like to hand over to Nigel to see if we've had any questions come in.
Thank you. We do have several questions that have come in. The first question is from the line of
Mr. O'Hare, Medway Council.
Please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Basically, it's a question about whether applications would be looked at favourably from building on, I suppose, the work done in previous innovation bids. So if we look, for example, at the work that's done by Leeds, if we look to replicate that in another local authority, would that be favourably looked at, or what?
Hello there, it's Harriet Beecher from the DFE answering you here.
Hi.
The answer is yes. We have a strand for the programme that's about scale and spread, and those can be either about scaling and spreading existing successful innovation programme projects, or about scaling and spreading other ideas and projects that haven't been part of the innovation programme to date. And for all of those, really, we're looking at projects that have promise and ability to scale up and helping people to achieve more than they would otherwise be able to do so. And we are certainly keen on the idea of supporting local authorities, trusts, private or voluntary organisations that would like to adopt or adapt promising innovations that have been developed by others.
Fantastic. Just a little bit to that, the evaluation of the previous innovations, is that due to completion or the full evaluation?
So the current innovation programme projects are all due to complete and be evaluated within the next year, but we have different timelines for different projects because of the nature of the outcomes evidence that's being collected. So the final evaluation, bringing the whole of phase 1 together, will be available early in 2017, but there is lots of evaluation data and evidence coming through already from the projects.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question. Your next question comes from the line of
Charlotte Langley.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to be very clear about innovation versus proven interventions. I've discussed this with Chris, for which very, very many thanks to Chris. I want to be clear about making sure that we understood that the Share Foundation, which is contracted by the DFE, how much data we need to prove that our intervention is needed, but because our intervention is not even actually running. It's a brand new program, and I just wanted to be very clear about that particular issue.
Charlotte, would you mind explaining a little bit more in detail about? So you said that the project is up and running already.
The project is not even up and running.
Oh, it's not up and running.
I mean, literally, we are literally in infancy, and we have data that says the intervention is needed, but we need to be sure that you aren't going to be approaching that your grant making like the Education Endowment Foundation, aka, for instance. And not that there's any criticism of the Education Endowment Foundation, it's that's a different organisation.
Charlotte, it's Sam Olsen here from the DFE. And
Sam, great to touch base with you, and maybe we can have a conversation offline after this one. Of
course. Of course, although I may find that I have to commit to a lot of those now that you've made me say that to over 90
Sorry,
people.
and I did raise an issue with Chris yesterday around review and further discussions, and I've been very, very well served by Lydia and Jane in the DFE and by our lead source, Paul Dennis. So, I mean, I do want to thank all of you in the DFE for being very, very open to my conversations with you. So that's a real pro plus for you guys.
Thank you. Well, to answer your question, and hopefully I am answering the question here, what we look to do in the innovation programme is to support projects and ideas and interventions that are at their early stage and in the stage of gathering data to demonstrate their value, hence the fact that they're not able to be immediately funded by local authorities. So yes, we are open to projects that are in their very early infancy and are doing that piece of data gathering. What we wouldn't be prepared to do would be to support, if you like, both stages of the project from the beginning. So we have had projects that have come to us in the past saying, we want to research this intervention and we want you to commit to scaling the intervention. Well, obviously in that instance, as you would expect, we would say that in the first instance, we would commit to the researching and the seed funding of the intervention and then come back to us once we've gathered the evidence that shows that this is working.
Then that means that I do need to have probably an offline conversation with somebody it would be great to have it with you.
Can we take that offline though, so we can move to
let's take it offline.
Question.
Let's take it
Thank
offline.
you.
If you'd be absolutely sweet and send me and allow me to have access to your email, I think I probably know what it might be, but
Okay.
it would be great because I think that's where we're at.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
That's been worth giving a minute.
Thank you, Nigel. If we had another question in, we'll take one more and then we'll move on with a few that we had sent in previously.
Certainly. The next question comes from the line of
Martin Nike.
Please go ahead.
Hi there. I think my question is slightly similar. So what I'm asking is, it's about stages again. So I'm calling on behalf of the Children's Social Care Improvement Programme at Lambeth Council. We've developed quite an advanced or sort of detailed improvement programme, but we're at the kind of delivery stage, and we're interested in funding to kind of fast track certain aspects of that. Is that appropriate?
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, short and sweet.
Yeah. We'd be really interested in seeing expressions of interest on that.
Okay, brilliant. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I'm going to move on now to a couple of questions that we had come in prior to the webinar starting. These again are on the application process and are quite short and sweet to answer, so I think it would be of benefit to everyone on the line to hear these. One question was around what the acceptable level of review is for the DFE to undertake on an EOI prior to application. And I think we need to be quite clear that we're not reviewing we won't review expressions of interest before they're submitted. If you have specific queries, then please send them to the spring inbox. And if these questions aren't covered by this webinar and what's on the FAQ section on the website, then we will get back to you. And if it's a question that's relevant to the wider audience, we'll post it on the website. Another question that's a similar part of the process was around whether we can publish an example of a model bid. The answer, unfortunately, is that we can't provide an example of a model bid, as there are, as I'm sure you'd understand, data protection issues of doing so. However, on the template, the expression of interest template, there are questions on each section which should give you a very clear idea of the type of information we're looking for, and that's in combination with the criteria that we set out in the How to Get Involved document should give you enough information to be able to answer. I'm going to pass over on to Harriet now. We had a number of questions come in around the application criteria and who can apply it and for what. We've started to answer a few of them already, but I think if we go through a few now, and then we'll come back to the live questions.
Okay, this is Harriet again. I'm going to pick up some of the questions, as Mike said, mainly about the different strands within the programme and the criteria. So we have a question: if we're proposing and delivering a project which goes across the strands, and people recall the strands are about rethinking children's social care and about transition to adulthood, and somebody's asked, if we're proposing a project which goes across those strands, can we submit this as one bid? And the answer to that question is yes, you should submit one application per innovation project, whether it addresses one strand or more than one strand. I have a question, somebody's asked, you mentioned rethinking transitions to adulthood as being a key theme. Could this also include looking at transitions from children's social care into adult social care? Again, the answer to that is yes. We know from families that the transition can be challenging, and so we would be really interested in exploring innovation in this space. I have a question about social care services for disabled children and whether we're looking for innovation here as well. Again, the answer is yes, we're definitely interested in that. The innovation programme is very much aimed at delivering better life chances for all children in the social care system, and that certainly includes disabled children who are classed as in need under Section 17 of the Children Act. So we are interested in projects that improve the experience of these children and families. Somebody asked very specifically whether short breaks and respite care could be part of that. And again, the answer is yes. We'd be interested in people's ideas about trialling innovative approaches around short break provision. I think one more question under this theme that I've got is around social impact bonds and funding models. So somebody's asked, so as a general question, somebody said, I'm interested in developing a new model of delivering services. Well, what types of models can I bid for? And I think the answer to that is that we're very interested in testing all sorts of new models of delivery, and we're flexible about what those might look like. They could include creating new independent trusts, joint ventures between local authorities and charities, developing regional services, social impact bonds, or outcome-based commissioning models. And somebody else also asked whether we would, I think we've made a reference to acting as a contract commissioner in a social impact bond in our document. Somebody's asked whether we consider underwriting outcome payments where it's currently difficult for the commissioner to pay for these outcomes. And again, the answer to that is yes, we would consider acting as a commissioner where there wasn't a direct commissioner already operating in the space, so long as the outcomes that are being looked at meet the eligibility criteria of the programme. And it's probably worth saying that in that kind of instance, we would also be looking for projects that are making the right links across other social impact bond support programmes in Whitehall.
Okay, thanks, Harriet. I'd like to move back now to some live questions. So, Nigel, if we have some queued up, if you'd let us know.
Yes, we have some more questions. The first question comes from the line of
Jackie Burke, Newham Council.
Please go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering about the existing projects, because having looked on the Spring Consortium website, the evaluations don't actually say a great deal. So in terms of thinking of expanding on what's worked well already, is there a list of contacts for these other projects that would be able to get in touch with, or is there some, are they publishing any interim evaluations that we might be able to build upon when looking at other bids?
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for the question. As Harriet mentioned before, some of the projects have they haven't quite finished their evaluation. A number of them will finish their evaluation now. Some are extended until the end of the year for various reasons. There's an interim learning document which is on the website, which has some shared learning, but it's mainly about implementation of the projects due to the fact that it was written and the data was collected whilst the projects were still in their setup phase or at the start of their delivery. The question around whether it will be available, the answer is yes, it will be. Once the evaluation is collected, there will be a more substantial report which will be available for you to read. Your second question about contacting individual projects, can I suggest that you get in touch with us through the Spring inbox, and if you can give us an idea of what type of project you're interested in, we'll be able to either help you in that way or put you in touch with a project directly. I think that's probably the best way. Does that answer
really
your question?
Helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question. That question is from the line of
Pat McKelvey.
Please go ahead.
Hello, it's Pat McKelvey here. I work in the CCG in Greater Manchester. Really, my question has half been answered by the previous caller, which was about our project would very much like to draw on evidence from one of the existing funded projects. But one of the elements that I'm really keen that we build in is really robust evaluation. And that is something that we would want support from. I'm aware that coaching isn't available for the expressions of interest, but is it acceptable to put in some good thinking around that without having taken it to the point of thinking it through in detail?
Hi, Pat. It's Harriet here again. I can answer that. Yes, I mean, absolutely. We're very keen for funded projects to have a really robust evaluation built in from the beginning, and projects that are taken through to full bid will have evaluation support at that point. In the interim, what we're looking for is your well thought through first proposals for how you would be looking to evaluate this, but we'll recognise that you'd be likely to then develop that as you have conversations with the evaluators and with a coach.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, no, that's great.
Do you have any more, Nigel?
Yes, the next question is from the line of
Hadi Stampy, Goldsmith.
Please go ahead.
Hi there, thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions. One is that we've got an innovation which we developed as part of a charity, and we're registered not in the UK. Would we be able to apply for funding in partnership with local authorities or other partner practice organisations?
So you did, sorry, just to check that I heard that correctly,
Yeah.
You've developed an innovation outside the UK and you're
That's
interested
right.
in implementing that in the UK?
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. There are projects in the first wave of the innovation programme that have done exactly that, and
Okay,
it's certainly, we certainly look at that.
Could I ask a follow-on question? Because our innovation really is across social work fields, and it mainly aims at sort of strengthening professional development and evidence-based practice and reflection and knowledge management. So it's not addressing one of the two key areas. Would the department still be interested in hearing about our innovation?
If it meets the criteria under at least one of the strands, so if it meets, it sounds like it might be relevant to our Rethinking Children's Social Care.
Well, it's in terms of addressing systems and developing expertise.
With the outcome focused on children, what's the outcome?
The outcome is development of expertise of social workers who are working with children. So we haven't evaluated the direct outcomes for service users yet, but that could be part of such a project, you know.
I think we look at that under our first strand. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take one more, Nigel, and then we'll move on to a few questions that have come in previously.
Certainly. The next question is from the line of
Eva Sprecher.
Please go ahead.
Hi. So I'm applying from a unincorporated organisation, and I was kind of wondering how mature you expect organisations of the applicants to be, or is the process kind of like applying for a free school where if you have a very well-defined idea with some relevant research to back it up, would you support that?
So it's Harriet again. Hi there. I would say that the maturity of an organisation doesn't necessarily mean stability. Hold on a minute. Eva, we might come back to you and answer that online if that's okay, because colleagues are telling me that there's a specific answer that we probably need to give you.
Yeah, I think that, Eva, I think the question around an unincorporated entity probably needs specific wording. So if that's okay, we'll come back to you on that.
Okay, can I ask a separate question if that's okay?
Sure.
Would you be looking to fund projects that address issues of children on the edge of care?
So the programme is about supporting innovations for children and young people who are part of the social care system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is focused upon those who are identified as having a reasonably high level of need. It's not intended to fund early intervention innovations. Although having an innovation project in your area that looks at the kind of social care system could be an enabler for further innovation to be developed locally, which has a kind of wider early intervention reach. The projects that we're funding as part of this programme are about children in the social care system.
Okay, thank you.
What I would just add, so you asked a specific question about unincorporated organisations, which we'll give you a specific answer on. But just in general, in answer to your question about the maturity of an organisation, I will just say that we'll be more interested in understanding and assessing organisational capacities and capabilities, and kind of assuring ourselves that the organisation will be able to deliver, than we will be about the kind of structure or status of the organisation, if that makes sense.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on with a couple of questions that I think came in prior to the webinar. Again, these are in the application criteria area, of which we have many questions. So I'll just hand over to Harriet on that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So I have a question here from somebody who says, we plan to develop an existing innovation project by applying the same principles to a completely new venture. How much information do we need to give about the initial project in this new application? And I think broadly our answer to that is that you don't need to provide detailed information on an existing DFE innovation programme project. Your application should make it clear how your idea is linked, how the new venture differs from the existing project, and what outcomes you expect to achieve. I have another question from somebody who's been piloting an approach with social workers using technology to engage with families, and a question that person is asking whether there's scope to look at more technological solutions to transforming social care as part of this programme. And the answer to that is yes, we are very interested in technology solutions which transform social care, as long as the overall outcome of the solution is focused on either rethinking children's social care or rethinking transitions to adulthood for young people.
Okay, great. I want to come back to questions around the funding process. We've had quite a few of those, but I think if we take, Nigel, if we take a couple of questions from the ether first, we'll come back to those funding process questions.
Certainly. The next question then is from the line of
Carla Kerr.
Please go ahead, Carla.
Hi, we're calling from Nottingham City Council. We were just wondering a little bit more around the finances, because obviously there's two expressions of interest, one in May and one in July. Have you put indicative budgets against spending a certain amount in May and a certain amount in July, or is it just based on the bids that you received?
It's the latter, Carla. So we haven't put specific pots against each deadline. It's more about who's ready and what comes in at which point.
Okay. And also, just based on the bids, do you have a set amount of money that you wish to fund for each bid, or a minimum amount of money?
No, it's very flexible depending on the needs of the programme and the response of the sector.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, Nigel?
Yep, the next question comes from the line of
Anna Metcalf.
Please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, our question is whether we can submit the expression of interest for a fully sort of a scope project, but without naming partners at the EOI stage.
Hi, Anna. We would prefer to have partners named at the EOI stage, if only because it gives a real sense of how the project is going to be implemented, how it will deliver against outcomes. From experience in the first wave of the programme, it was quite important to get the partnerships really embedded early on, because otherwise that caused a huge amount of problems further down the line. So I would suggest that getting your partnerships in line early would be a good idea. If there's a reason why, a specific reason why you can't name partners at this stage, then if you make that clear, it will be considered as we assess the EOIs. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. So ideally, you prefer to have partners at our end kind of agreed and in place. And I suppose, is there any flexibility between EOI and full proposal stage if that changes?
The answer is yes. There is flexibility in between EI and proposal stage, absolutely. And I think it's quite clear on the EOI template that we would like to know who the partners are and what almost the status of that partnership. So is it just that you've had a quick phone call with them and they've said, "Oh, we'll think about it," or is it that you've got a contract in place, or where are you in that relationship? That's all really useful stuff for us to know.
Of course, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Nigel, I think we'll take one more and then we'll do a bit of some of the questions around the funding process.
Certainly, yeah. The next question comes from the line of
Richard Parker.
Please go ahead, Richard.
Hello. You've partly answered my question, I think. I mean, our project is to do with improving educational outcomes for children in care. But obviously, if you're working in schools, then you're not just working with that distinct group. Other vulnerable children, indeed all children, will benefit from it. Is that going to disadvantage us? Should we emphasise the children in care element, or is the sort of the general approach to emotional well-being and mental health something that you will take into consideration?
I think in your expression of interest, it would be worth really highlighting the children in care aspect of the outcomes, or not to say that you shouldn't put in anything about other vulnerable children and other outcomes. I think that's important, but we would like to see how a potential project would impact outcomes for children in care.
I think that's right. It's Harriet here. I mean, if you just look at the criteria on which we'll be judging the expressions of interest, it will be important to show how any project is working towards outcomes for children in the social care system. Not necessarily just children in care, but children who are part of that system.
Yeah, because I mean the evidence is that it's children who are in stable care are actually doing better at school than children who are having multiple changes, or indeed other groups of children in need. And that's kind of one of the things we want to highlight as part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Nigel, we're going to move on now to talking about the funding process. We had a number of questions on this aspect of the programme. I'm going to pass on to Harriet to go through a few of these, and then we'll come back to more questions for the last 15 minutes or so.
Thanks, Mike. So we have a question from someone who's asking, if the local authority is the lead in a partnership arrangement, is all of the funding paid directly to the local authority to allocate? And the answer to that is that we have a variety of funding mechanisms available to us. So in some of our projects in phase one lead local authority has been paid, and then that lead authority cascades funds to other organisations. In some projects, more than one local authority has received grant funding. It depends on the nature of the project and how far progressed the partnerships are. So there are different ways in which we can work with you to set that up. I have a fairly technical question here, again from somebody who's asking, do local authorities have to follow public procurement regulations in spending this funding? And if so, how do we respond to section 1.2 regarding partners if we don't know who they will be until we've been out to the market? So I think Mike has said in a previous answer has touched on this. The answer I've got here specifically about the regulations question is that all applicants need to observe and comply with their own organisation's procurement policy. As a public sector body, a local authority should be observing the public procurement regulations where they apply. We do appreciate that we've asked lots of questions in the expression of interest form, and we've asked those to be able to gauge which elements are already in place and which need further development. And so we appreciate that at this stage you might not have a complete answer to all of the questions in the expression of interest. So do be open and tell us where the partnerships are already in place and what steps you're taking to complete the others. And as Mike said, the clearer those are, the easier it is for us to see how deliverable your project is.
Okay, can I just jump in there? I think that's a really important point I just want to pull out, which is we have asked a lot of questions in the expression of interest template. We don't, whilst we'd love all of the applications to have perfect full answers, comprehensively answered on all of them, we can't expect that because of the nature of what we're asking, which is for innovation in the sector. So you won't be massively penalised if there's something in there that doesn't completely answer the question, as long as it's painting the right picture for us to be able to gauge whether this is a viable project. Nigel, I think we can probably take some more questions now, if you've got any in.
We currently have no further questions at the moment.
Okay. In that case, I think we've just had one in via email actually. I think someone's asked about what they need to provide as part of the expression of interest, and to what extent the summary needs to be a really detailed outline of the proposal. I think, as I said just now, what we're really after with the expressions of interest is to be able to really understand what the picture of the proposal that you're putting in. So if that can be really well articulated in a couple of sentences, great. I imagine in most cases it will take a bit more than that. I'm hoping that's answered the question from Martin, who's just emailed that in. And Harriet, we've just had another one into the inbox, which I think might be for you, which is, could a proposal centred on care for trafficked children be eligible?
I would encourage the person asking that question to put that project in. I think we'd be interested in looking at it.
Okay, good. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Nigel, have we got any more questions?
We have. A few have come in just while you were doing those last two questions. Your next question comes from the line of...
Charlotte Murray.
Please go ahead, Charlotte.
Hi there. My question is about the May deadline, and were you to put in an application and it be judged not quite as well developed as you had hoped, is there an opportunity to reapply and come back, or is it more likely that you might be accepted with a few points, that kind of thing?
Charlotte, I think it depends a little bit project by project, how far off you are and how kind of interesting the proposal looks. It is possible that we sort of send you back after the May deadline to work on it further and come back to us for July, yes.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
And I think in addition to that, to bear in mind what Sam said at the beginning, this is now we're looking at £200 million spread over quite a long period of time. We're not committed to sending out all of the £200 million within these two EOI deadlines. So something to bear in mind.
I think generally we'd encourage you not to rush to put something for the May deadline if you're not ready, because we're not committed to spend a certain amount in May.
I think it's that clarity that you've provided, that it's not just the 200 million and that's going soon, that helps us with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of...
Charlie Hudson, 1+1.
Please go ahead.
Hi there. Can you tell me if you're planning to arrange any networking opportunities for partners to meet up and discuss potential collaborations?
Do you mean at the EOI stage?
Yes. Prior to now, really, prior to submitting an EOI.
No, we hadn't planned that, although it's a very interesting idea, and I think something for us to take away. So thanks, Charlie. That's a really interesting idea. It's actually something we've been talking a lot about in terms of the Wave 1 projects and how they will eventually interact and work with the Wave 2 projects once they're approved. So that's a really interesting point. So we'll take that away.
Okay. And my other secondary question is, you talked about a third EOI deadline. Do you know when that will be yet, roughly?
We don't, I'm afraid. Okay. It will depend on certain things. But I think the point Sam wanted to make was that we certainly won't be committing all of the 200 million with the first two deadlines. There will be money later for further developments, further ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, Nigel? From
Okay, we have further questions. The next question comes from the line of
Hannah Goldie. Hi, Hannah Goldie from Social Finance. I just wondered whether you have a view on whether you're looking to fund kind of new areas, particularly geographically, to kind of spread the funding around, or whether how you see applications from areas that got funding last time.
So I think we absolutely want to encourage applications from everywhere. There's no geographical bias on any of the process. Does that answer your first question? The second bit was around projects that applied last time, I think.
Yeah.
And again, if you applied and received funding last time, or applied and didn't receive funding last time, that won't affect a new application.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next question is from
Chris Mullen, National Deaf Children's Society.
Please go ahead.
Hello. I think I heard Harriet earlier on state that funding wouldn't be given to children who are not in the social care system, and no funding towards early intervention projects. I suppose it's a legal point that obviously deaf children who I work for are disabled children as part of Section 17, but are not getting into the system. So will it recognise the legal aspects of children who are disabled who can be in the social care system, but maybe they are now being picked up by early intervention projects as social care thresholds rise? Would they be penalised then, potentially, disabled children who are not technically within the social care system, though legally they could be?
So I think what I said earlier was that children in the social care system includes disabled children who are classed as in need under Section 17.
That's right.
Are you talking about children below the threshold at Section 17?
No, I'm not. No, I'm saying it's just many social care will actually not will keep children out of that system at an early intervention level, when actually technically they should be taking them on board.
So sorry to clarify, you're talking about children who are classed as in need under Section 17?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. We are open to expressions of interest around children under Section 17.
Thank you.
We're classing those children as being in the social care system.
Thank you. I thought that, so I wanted to clarify that. I read you that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of
Enola Colbert from Ealing.
Please go ahead.
Hi, I've got two questions. One, if we were going to put in a bid under the transition to adulthood stream, would it cover young people of 18 plus who've come through social care and were wanting to kind of continue the offer of support beyond 18? And the second, much more straightforward question is, what's the timescale for letting us know the outcome of our EOI?
So yes, we would be looking potentially at children who are over the age of 18. If they are, particularly if they have been in care and are in that leaving care category. With regards to your question on timescales,
and we'll know by the end of May.
End of May.
Around the EOIs.
For the first deadline.
Yeah.
Can I just come back on the 18 pluses who have been through social care? I mean, I think it's fairly self-evident the leaving care cohort, simply because of the legislation around that, it makes kind of sense to continue for those, but I'm interested in even thinking about a kind of an ongoing support or working with our adult services colleagues to provide greater support for our 18-year-olds, particularly those involved in serious youth violence, in CSE, etc. So I just wanted to know what your kind of boundaries would be around that.
I think we would have to look at your EOI to make a specific response to that. It doesn't feel instinctively on the end of a call that that is a core part of this programme. But if it's something that you feel you have particular innovation on, it's certainly worth putting in an EOI to us, because if it's something that we find ourselves particularly interested in and particularly in line with some other policy areas, we may be able to put you in touch with another part of the department.
Okay.
Nigel, I think we'll probably take two more maybe we've got time for.
Okay, yeah, we do only have two left at the moment. Next question comes from the line of
Dendy Platt.
Please go ahead.
Hello, Dendy Platt from the University of Bristol. Could you clarify the difference between a new project and a scale and spread project, and what the implications of that are for the way you put in your expression of interest?
So a scale and spread project is a project that takes an existing innovation that's being tested and uses it in their local context. And it may be that you work in partnership with the project that originally had the original innovation, or it may be that you do it separately. What we'll be looking for there is fidelity to that original model and how you're going to transfer that to your local context. A new innovation is something totally new that we haven't seen before.
So scale and spread could be something like just the spread could be limited to spread around one authority or a small group of authorities.
Yes, it could be. Absolutely.
You're not looking for spread across the whole country or anything like that.
No, not necessarily.
Although we would be open to spread across the whole country as well.
No, I'm not suggesting it. I'm just wanting to be cautious.
Yes, I think it's spread as in you could spread it geographically, or you could spread it to different parts of an existing organisation. We're quite open to what spread and scale mean.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Andy?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I'm just going to add a little bit on there. Where we're looking at scale and spread, we're really interested in through the investment board, getting under the business case for sustainability of scale and spread projects. So we're really looking to scale and spread projects where project innovations have really proved their market worth, are embedded into either a specific area or a specific programme, and the scale and spread is then the seed funding that allows those programmes to expand.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I'm in the situation of having developed a specific innovation and done a pilot sort of level of testing of it and had some success with that. So it's still fairly new, and I'm trying to sort of judge the difference between new and scale and spread in that context.
It's difficult to say without, I think, hearing more about it.
Sure, yeah.
So I think if you put that in the EOI, and it will become clear, I think, as we go through.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of
Joseph Badman.
Please go ahead.
Hi there, it's Joe Badman here from Achievement for Children. We're one of the partners in practice localities, and having been through the supporting documentation, it says that there's some flexibility between how you'll use the 200 million funding between the innovation programme and the partners and practice programme. I just wanted to clarify whether or not there's going to be a different application process, or whether the partners in practice will bid through the same expression of interest.
Joe, we have been in touch and obviously quite close to Achievement for Children, and yes, we are looking at partners in practice bids through a separate process as their work for Partners in Practice. But if a local authority who is a Partners in Practice wants to do a new innovation that's not part of their role as a partner in practice, then they should feel that they can also bid through the innovation programme.
That's wonderful. And then a separate question to that about the innovation fund proper is we're interested in being involved in scaling one of the innovations that was put through the first round of the programme. I wanted to know whether you would prefer us to contact the originators of that project and to try and be part of that scaling process initially, and for them to submit the expression of interest, or for us to submit an expression of interest saying that we would like to be a part of the next round of scaling that project. I hope I've made that clear. I feel like I might have been a little vague in explaining that.
Yeah, I think so. I would suggest you should be talking directly to the existing people who have already done it and discuss with them. We don't mind which way it comes and who it comes from. You might want to think about where you're going to want the funding to go, and whoever's going to receive the funding, it probably makes more sense for them to write the final bid. You could do it jointly. You could do it yourself.
No, that clarifies things perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. We are approaching the end of the time we've got. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and your engagement. I hope we've managed to answer at least the majority of the questions. I know I've got people looking at me, pointing to their laptops, saying that we've had questions coming in that we haven't been able to answer to the spring inbox. We will get to them and we will reply. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, we will, if the questions are useful for everyone, we'll put them on the website so that everyone can see them. Otherwise, we may reply directly, but we will get to them all. The recording of this webinar will be on the website shortly, which I'm sure you'd all love to listen back to at your leisure. And we will also put the questions that we've answered today into the FAQ section, which is on the website. I think that draws today to a close, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone and hope to hear from you soon with your expressions of interest.
And good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your conference call for today. You may now disconnect. Thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.